Part 62. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 611. Chapter 611 Can't wait. Huanayang sneered, "There are so many people here, there are always a few white-eyed wolves popping up everywhere. They wish they could come here, and they don't have to do anything every day, so they are being raised in vain. Actually, how can there be such a good thing in the world? If you want to eat stew, you have to make a fire yourself, right? The Li family gave this place, and it is kind of them to be willing to protect everyone after the Northern Expeditionary Army goes out. Extremely good." Xiao Kui nodded vigorously, "I think so too. You have to work your own in life, and you can't always think about getting it from others." Huanayang told her, "Just think about it. Keep an eye on these families more carefully in the future. After all, they are new here and you don't know what their temper is. Those who understand reason should move around more. From now on, if there is work in the workshops or in the village, they should do it first. Find them. If there is anyone who is stupid, they should be beaten." The old lady and the fourth sister-in-law cannot argue with these people because of the marquis, but we stand in the middle, and it is appropriate to treat this person as a blackface. Of course it's better to be able to persuade them. After all, we are all poor people, so it's not easy. If we don't care about anything else, we men should work together to fight against the barbarians. But those who really don't listen to advice should be kicked out early, so as not to harm the village's feelings towards everyone just to accommodate an ignorant person. "I understand, sister-in-law, I understand." Xiaokui nodded repeatedly. She was a child bride since she was a child. She was treated harshly and scolded when she was growing up. No one taught her so much. Others may feel bored after hearing Huanayang say so much, but she is extremely happy and even gets closer to Huanayang. Soon, another batch of mooncakes was baked. Huaniang made the decision and asked Xiaokui to bring a plate to the newcomers. It is not necessary to share one piece per person, but the children at home can sweeten their mouths in advance. In the yard of the Li family, the day's work on fabrics and furs has come to an end for the time being. Jiyan took Grandma He, Dongmei and Shui Ling Shuiyun to bake mooncakes with new fillings. Shui Yun is extremely talented in cooking, Shui Ling is diligent, and Nanny He is steady, and both are good at work. Jiyan has prepared the fillings and taught you once, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. It was because of previous calculations that the Zhenjiazhuang side was left behind. Jiyan asked Shui Yun carefully and urgently ordered an additional 500 mooncakes at the simple bakery. At first he thought it was a simple thing, but he was so busy eating mooncakes during the festival. This also made Jiyan feel less contemptuous and more serious about the director. When she had free time at night, she specially made a timetable. Calculate the time difference caused by cheating outside and in space, and make reasonable arrangements. At first, she felt tired, like a spinning top, but she got used to it after a few days. Dim sum shops in the city have given up competing for the prime time of the Mid-Autumn Festival and are focusing on renovations, but the final glass has not yet been delivered. On the Baiwan Garden side, Jiyan discussed with his second uncle and decided to build a glass greenhouse in advance. We couldn't wait until the weather was cold before starting the project. It happened to be the same as the dim sum shop. Even if outsiders doubt the origin of the glass, they can suggest it to the marquis. After all, few people dare to ask the marquis directly. He was so busy that on the 10th day of the lunar month, Yeshan actually sent back the new weapons he had made. For a period of time, he has been staring at this matter. He has lost a lot of weight and his eyes are bloodshot, but the results are also very significant. The iron roller and various heads, etc., added together, really produced 35 sabers, plus a dozen daggers. It happened that Lao He and his team of 30 people each had a saber to defend themselves. Li Laosi, Zhang Cheng, Ji Yi and Lu Yang could all share an extra handful. Ji Yin directly decided to give the extra handful to Yeshan, the hero. Yeshan was so happy that he almost couldn't find Bei. The remaining daggers were used by each of Jiaran's brothers' servants for self-defense, including Zheng Feng, Zheng He, Shui Ling and Shui Yun. Keep the rest for Li Zhensheng to recruit people later. Everyone who got the weapons was overjoyed. After all, the quality of these new knives was so good. I dare not say that cutting iron is like clay, but both the hardness and sharpness are much better than those on the market. In addition, additional tights, boots, backpacks and various medicines were prepared for Lao He and the others. Lao He and the others were called to the marquis's yard, and they quickly distributed these things. Everyone has a full backpack, complete clothing and supplies, and almost everything that can be considered has been considered. The newly made saber is not that dazzling and sharp, but has a simple and restrained look, which is very suitable for them to walk outside in the future. Although Ji Yin went through the list one by one, he still asked a few questions. Uncle He, take a look at these things to take out. Are they enough? Is there anything missing? There is no shortage, Princess. Lao He quickly led everyone to thank him. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration, Princess. With these things, even if you encounter 100 bandits on the road, you will not be afraid. Ji Yin quickly said, what I want you to look for is not something valuable. At the critical moment, you can throw the things away. Your life is at stake. If the worst happens, you can just go look for it later. The veterans were heart-warmed upon hearing this. They are not smart, but they can easily tell whether the princess's words are true or false. In the princess's heart, they really put their lives first. They have lived in the second village for a long time, and their bones ached when they were idle every day. Now that everything is ready, they can't wait. After some discussion, Lao He took the lead and asked for orders. Princess, we are not familiar with medicinal materials, but we always think that everything is picked most in autumn, right? We plan to set off tomorrow, complete the task early, and come back early. The Mid-Autumn Festival will be in a few days. In addition to giving out moon cakes, the village will also kill pigs and share the meat. You can go out after the festival. Good News left a few words. Lao He and others insisted, we have no family and no food. It doesn't matter if we can't celebrate the festival. We just need to eat something good wherever we go on the road. Okay, Ji Yin no longer stopped, and asked Xiaoqui to come over, and said, Aunt Xiaoqui, bring more pancakes, meat sauce and dry noodles to Uncle He and the others, all from my go up the accounts. From now on, you will be responsible for their food, drink and clothing when they are at home, and for taking care of the house after they go out. I will give you a salary. Of course, if Uncle He and the others don't want to do the laundry, they can leave it to you, every day. I'll give you 100 cents a month as hard work allowance. If you are too busy, you can also ask the sisters-in-law from the second village to work together, but you are fully responsible. If I have any instructions in the future, I will only arrange them for you. Xiaoqui nodded repeatedly. In fact, she is now in charge of the second village. But the princess gave her a title, which gave her more confidence, and she would have a fixed salary to support her family in the future. At this point, things are settled. That night, Ji Yin gave Lao He another booklet with pictures of the Panax nodo ginseng that he was looking for, as well as some other medicinal materials, even pictures of fruit saplings, flower saplings, seeds, etc. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 612. Chapter 612 is a new idea. In short, this first trip out is just an experiment. I will find whatever I can find, and I promise to come back in early November. In addition, in order to ensure the survival of fruit seedlings and flower seedlings, Ji Yin brought 5 bags of black soil to Lao He and the others, and carefully explained how to use it. The black soil is a mixture of private plot and nursery soil. It is better than the flower soil sent to Baiyuan before. I hope it can ensure that the flower seedlings and tree seedlings from a long distance can be transported back smoothly. Of course, Jiyan has a nursery at hand. Even if he gets a fruit core, he can successfully plant saplings and bear fruit. But that is a bit too shocking, and over time, it is easy for people to doubt it. It would be much easier to cover up if you get saplings. Early in the morning on the second day, Lao He and the others drove 3 carriages and set off on more than 20 horses. In the previous northern expeditions, many barbarian war horses were captured, and some old horses in the military camp were eliminated. Li Laozi bought dozens of them for his daughter without spending much money. Of course, if an outsider wants to buy it, it will definitely not be that easy. As the saying goes, those who are near the water and the towers get the moon first, and there will be people in the court who are good at becoming officials. This is all about the convenience of connections, and it also objectively reflects that the Li family has gradually begun to develop and prosper. Seeing that the mooncakes are baked, and after being left for a few days, the mooncakes look better and are moist and shiny. So, Tao Hongying started to take people to make mooncakes. Ordinary yellow straw paper, wrapped in 5 mooncakes, 1 piece and 2 tails, making up a pound. Wrap it up, tie it up, and stamp it with a seal with the character, and it's done. Those from Zincan, Erkan, Zhenjiazhuang, and Haofu should be sent away first. The village chief uncle drove a donkey cart and happily gave some to Xiaoangzhuang and Awaisha village. The rest that need to be given as gifts are packed in customized wooden boxes. A wooden box has 4 compartments and is unpainted. It is just the color of raw wood. The lid of the box is engraved with patterns such as Chang'e flying to the moon. It looks simple and clean. Put 2 mooncakes with the same filling in each grid, 8 in a box, tie them with a red ribbon, and divide them up. The Wen family, the Li family, the Peng family, President Zhou's family, Mr. Tang, colleagues who were close friends with Li Laoer, etc. In short, the things were not expensive, but they were what the Li family wanted. Moreover, it's definitely innovative. At first, when the mooncake gift box arrived, no one took it too seriously. After all, it happens like this every Mid-Autumn festival. As a result, when they tasted it, they realized that the mooncakes were very different. So Mr. Lu sent his son to ask for a few boxes and give them to his old friends. Mr. Wen also ordered 2 boxes to give to his boss. When the big patrons of Baiwan Garden heard about it, they also came to ask for it as a joke. In the end, the Li family didn't have much left, so people of all ages could only have a simple taste. The Marquis also personally carried 2 boxes and sent them to the palace to the emperor. The emperor was probably very happy with the meal and brought back a white jade statue of Chang'e holding a rabbit for good news. The good news was happily put away, and her private room became even thicker. In and outside the village, preparations for the festival were in full swing, but the Li family was not happy. For no other reason, Li Zhensheng and his children still did not come back. Old Mrs. Li was worried about it, but she didn't dare to say anything, for fear that her family would get angry too. Jiyan also felt worried when she saw her grandma running back and forth to the village entrance, wishing she could sit in the autumn wind all day long. No matter how powerful she is, she can't overcome the barrier of space and bring her uncle and the others back. As a result, at dusk on August 14, the Marquis and his guards actually carried back 7 or 8 people, big and small, in a dusty state. It was Li Zhensheng, Ji and the others. The whole Li family and Zincan were in a sensation, and they all ran forward to greet him. Mrs. Li took her grandchildren and after seeing them one by one and seeing nothing, she glared at her eldest son who was laughing and said angrily, "If you don't come back, the family will not be able to survive this period. Why are they like rabbits? You can't catch them if you let them out." Li Zhensheng was away from home, so naturally he was thinking about the young and old at home. Now he was scolded and pinched by his mother, which made him feel very relieved. This is really home. Mom, we encountered a sunken ship on the road, and we helped, which delayed it for 2 days. There were many ships gathered at the pier, and they couldn't reach the shore for a while. It was the Marquis who sent someone to guide our fleet to the military camp. Just brought us back. Li Zhensheng wiped his face and turned into a big cat, and just ran away, covered in dust. Oh, why is someone still sinking? You should help. It's not easy to be away from home. If you can help, you can't just watch in vain. How can old Mrs. Li really blame her son? As long as the person comes back, it will be fine, let alone everything happens for a reason. Let's go home first. Li Lao hurried forward to greet his family. The village chief uncle saw that the villagers still wanted to join in and enjoy the fun, so he shouted, laughed and scolded. Why are you going to join in the fun? All the good stuff is on the boat. You can't get it even if you try to get there. Why don't you go home and kill the chickens and clean the yard? The festival will be held tomorrow, and the days will be long in the future. There is enough to talk about. The villagers thought about it, agreed with a smile, and went home. There was some drought this year, and the weather was relatively hot for a longer period of time. Therefore, the crops in the fields can be harvested after the Mid-Autumn Festival. Otherwise, at this time in previous years, the crops would have been harvested. How could there be such a leisurely opportunity to celebrate the festival? Although the villagers dispersed, the Li family yard was still full of people. Li Yong and Huanyang brought their 2 children, Mr. Wen and his wife, the village chief and Uncle Zhao were all there. Lu Biatu and his wife hugged their younger son, and then took their eldest son to ask questions. Lu Yang was already strong, and now he is as strong as an iron tower. Ji Yi is not much weaker either. He is equally tall and strong, and has completely lost his youthful appearance. There are only Jiexi and Jian, it's almost impossible to watch. These 2 boys went out for a trip. They didn't gain much weight. Instead, they became tanned and became leaner. The most striking change is that their eyes are so bright and frightening, as if a monkey has discovered a peach orchard. Old Mrs. Li was worried, always feeling that these 2 children would be out of control. Sure enough, the 2 boys hugged Grandma's arms, one on the left and the other on the right. They couldn't stop talking about the wonderful things outside and the excitement of Quanzhou. Finally, they got to the point. Jiexi begged, Grandma, can we not go to school anymore? Yes, Grandma, we don't want to get the top prize, we want to visit foreign countries. Jian also agreed. Mrs. Li's mind was pounding. She glared at her eldest son who touched his nose innocently, and then gave her grandchildren a hard knock. We will talk about this later. Go and clean up first. Look at what you are like now. I don't know, I thought you were, soaked in ink every day. Everyone laughed when they heard this and joked one after another. Yes, is the sun in the south so strong, anyone who goes there will be burned to black charcoal when they come back. Isn't it true that the white cloth doesn't need to be dyed, and can be tanned directly into black cloth? Jiyan was so well behaved that she brought Shui Ling Shuiyun with her to fetch water for her adoptive father and uncle to wash their hands and face. Then, she was robbed and ran away by several brothers. Send it at the 3rd watch. Hua came back from the injection in the rain, a little late, sorry, huh. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 613. Chapter 613, There are never too many days of fun. In the backyard, in Jiyan's room, Ji Yi, Lu Yang, Jiexi and Jian were sitting around the Kong. They put various snacks, fruits, and snacks among them. In short, all kinds of delicious food that Jiyan could find were brought out for his brothers. Jia 11 and Jian took their sister and talked happily, their eyebrows almost flew up. Jiaxi gnawed on the mooncake, waved her hands and shouted, "Sister, there are fish as big as a house in the south, and turtles as big as a washing tub. I even rode a circle. If my uncle hadn't caught me, I would have been killed. Taken to the sea." Me too, Jian followed closely, equally excited. "Sister, didn't you see those foreigners? Red eyes, blue eyes, yellow hair, they really look like ghosts. They rolled their tongues when talking, and the things they came up with were really interesting, and they are all things we don't have here. I even bought you a box that can sing by itself. It's all in your luggage. I'll get it back for you when the cargo is unloaded at the dock." Ji Yi and Lu Yang have been with the boat several times and have become much calmer. After they ate and drank, Ji Yi took out an old booklet from his arms. The booklet has obviously been looked at frequently and has become tattered. Ji Yi handed it to his sister and said with a smile, "Sister, if you want to find something, my brother has found it for you. But there are a few things that have not been marked, which means they have not been found. I will continue to look for them for you later." "Thank you, brother." Jiyan hugged her brother's arm and smiled with her eyes like crescent moons. "You know, this album was drawn by her. It includes mangoes, lychees and other fruits, some fish and shrimps from the sea, spices from the southeast, etc. It's all very numerous and complicated. It is a big project to find out everything and bring it back. But brother Ji, who was always considered reckless by the family, actually had the patience to basically find everything for her. What is this? This is the love that a brother has for his sister. Brother, I've thought about a lot of delicious food, and I'll cook them for you tomorrow." Jiyan also hurriedly presented the treasure, causing Ji to smile and nod. Jiaxi and Jian were afraid of leaving them behind, so they also shouted together, "Sister, you can't be partial. We help too." "Okay, we have them all." Jiyan waved her chubby hand boldly, "and brother Lu Yang, I've prepared gifts too." After saying that, she called Shui Ling to go to the Ye family's yard next door and bring over the newly made saber and dagger. Sure enough, the Ji brothers immediately exploded with joy. "This is the same good knife as Uncle Daong's. It must be the same. Uncle Daong won't let us play with that one, and we will have it in the future. I want this dagger wrapped in shark skin." Men are inherently aggressive, no matter their age. The family brothers have distributed new weapons, and they are eager to go out to conquer the world and conquer the sea immediately. It's a pity that the Li family still has the Dingai Shenzhen. Before they could say anything big, old Mrs. Li arrived in time, slapped each one in the face, and carried them all to the front to eat. After dinner, as soon as the door to the backyard is closed, the front yard becomes free of women and becomes the domain of the young and old men of the Li family. In the hot spring pool in the wing room, the waves are surging. Everyone was washed and put on clean clothes. Uncles, nephews, or fathers and sons gathered together on the big kong, talking lively, and fell asleep in the middle of the night. When you get up in the morning, the sun rises, and the Mid-Autumn Festival is here. The academy had a 2-day holiday, but there were still evening classes last night, so it was almost noon when Li Laosan and Zhao Yuro came back with the children. Before the carriage arrived at the entrance of the village, Ji Yi and Jiaxi Jian sat on the big tree and looked around. When they saw shadows in the distance, their brothers started shouting. Hence, Jiaran, brother Li and brother Mao also jumped out of the carriage. The brothers rushed together like crazy, hugging each other, jumping around. They were all so happy. Jie Huan came out of the yard, wiped the water stains on his hands, and smiled innocently. He originally wanted to call his brothers and sisters to come in quickly, but he was dragged to the orchard to play together. Jiyan, this precious thing, will naturally not be left behind. Since her brothers have returned home, she doesn't need to grow her legs anymore. Either sitting on this brother's shoulder, or lying on that brother's back, my heart is filled with happiness. Mrs. Lee listened to the excitement outside. When she came out and saw that only her son and daughter-in-law were left, she couldn't help laughing and said, "These boys are so together, where are they going to be naughty?" Zhao Yuru stepped forward and hugged her mother-in-law's arm, and replied, "Mom, it's hard to celebrate the festival. Let them play as they please. I heard that Ji and the others are back." Even with Jiaren's steady temperament, he didn't even sleep well last night. Li Lao-san also smiled and said, "Yes, mother, if there is any work, I will do it. The children are grown, and it is not easy to join in." Mrs. Lee didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You two, I just said one thing, you are waiting for me. I am their grandmother, how can I stop them from getting close to each other?" After saying that, she asked her son and daughter-in-law, "Come on, hurry into the house. You said you wanted to work, so you can't be lazy today. The festival is lively this year and there are many people, so let's cook more good dishes." Of course Aunt Wu-san, Daz's wife, and others also came back to celebrate the festival, but at this time, they were eager to visit the family, and they quickly dispersed after a few words of greeting. In the orchard, the fruits of each tree are so heavy that they want to break the branches at any time. Compared to before, the sun has shone for half a month longer, so the sourness of the fruit has faded a lot, and it is already about half as sweet. Jiaren and the others picked the fruits randomly, rubbed them on their clothes, and started eating them. Jiaren, Brother Li, and Brother Mao talked about the big and small things in the college. Jiaxi and Jian talked about their experiences in Quanzhou, Jiawen talked about the restaurant business, Ji talked about the hard work of sailing. The brothers gathered together, eating and laughing, and there was really endless talk. Jian is among the brothers, rolling around like a red panda, extremely happy. Such a happy time, no matter how long it is too short. When the sun rose above the head, Li Laosi found himself at the foot of the mountain and shouted loudly, "Jiaren, you are taking your brothers and sisters home for dinner." The boys immediately packed up their things, patted the grass leaves on their clothes, and then carried their sister and ran home. A table has been set up in the Li family's yard. Uncle Village Chief and Aunt Wu, Uncle Zhao, and several others, Huaniyang and his wife and their children, Mr. Wen and his wife, Mr. Ho, Divine Dr. Zhang, Lu Baiatu and his wife and their children. In short, there are more than 30 people living together. Logically speaking, on days like this, you should eat at home. But Mrs. Lee was happy that her children and grandchildren were all gathered together, so she wanted to have a great time, so she simply gathered everyone here. Daong and Huaniyang are considered half of the sons and daughters-in-law of the Li family. The village elders, Uncle Zhao and Dr. Zhang are also equivalent to the elders of the Li family. Lu Baiatu's family and Mr. Wen and his wife are even more of a family. Needless to say, the Marquis, the children all gathered around him as soon as he came back and got tired of it. The east and west rooms are added to the main room, and 3 tables are opened for men, women, old and young. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 614. Chapter 614. It's all your father's fault. Chicken, fish, meat, and eggs, fried or fried. Tao Hongying used all her skills to make the table collapse under the weight of the dishes, and everything was delicious and delicious. Old Mrs. Lee rarely poured herself a bowl of wine, and she was about to get drunk before she could drink it. When a person gets old, what he longs for is not good food and drink, or even the glory of his family. What he longs for is that his children and grandchildren are safe and his life goes smoothly. Everyone was chatting about trivial matters, the latest news in the city, and the crops in the fields, and they were so lively that they almost lifted the roof of the house. The meal lasted until the sun went down. Every one of the old and young gentlemen, including the Marquis, was drunk. While the women were busy cleaning up the mess, Li Lao suggested taking a dip in the hot spring. On such a day of reunion, the hot spring valley also needs to rest for 2 days. It has been packed up long ago, and it is quiet waiting for the family to enjoy it. So the men quickly moved the battlefield and ran to the valley to sober up and have fun. At the second village, the soldiers of the 6 families who settled down all received mooncakes and pork from the Li family, as well as angia grain given by the Marquis. There was no shortage of rice and noodles, so they had a particularly rich meal today. Wounded soldiers and veterans without family members still ate a big pot of rice, stewed meat, and a large bowl of wine for each person. When they heard that the hot spring valley had become a world of men, they also ran to join in the fun. When the moon was at night, there were only women in the courtyards of each family, because men were sleeping. The next day, each family returned to its usual calm, and talking about yesterday still made people laugh non-stop. How come the wonderful Mid-Autumn Festival has become a day for men to let themselves go? No one can explain it clearly, and no one wants to explain it clearly. There are so many rules in life, just be happy. Because Li Lao-san, Zhao Yuru, and Jiaran could only rest for 2 days, Li Zhensheng was not in a hurry to go to the dock to unload the goods. The whole family gathered at home, thinking about eating, drinking, and talking. Jiaxi and Jian didn't want to go to the academy to study. They were so anxious that they scratched their heads and wished they could climb a tree. The 2 of them hugged Grandma's arms and refused to let go. Jian begged, "Grandma, I'm really not good at studying. I only like horseback riding and archery in those courses at the academy." "Me too, Nai, just let us go to the south. I want to follow the Fan people to see their country. I want." Jia 11 followed suit. It's a pity that the old lady just refused to let go. When it comes to your grandson's future, you cannot make a decision easily. Old Mrs. Li said, "You have just come back, rest for a few days, wait until I ask your uncle and parents, and discuss it carefully." Jiaxi and Jian had no choice but to look at their sister again, expecting her to help and plead for mercy. But Jian even smiled and pretended to be stupid even though his brother's eyes were so wide open that their eyes cramped up. Every family has its own difficulties in reciting sutras, especially those with fledgling chicks who are always trying to fly out of their nests, so they are bound to be troubled for a while. And every household in the city is also having a hard time at this time. Because the Mid-Autumn Festival has passed, the conscription will begin immediately. Although each family donated a lot of food and money, 1 child per family entered the military camp. This was an iron rule that could not be changed no matter what. The only special case is the Zhongningho mansion. The old Marquis fought his way into the palace, begged the emperor to relent, and kept his grandson from joining the army. However, he also gave half of the Marquis's family property to the Northern Expeditionary Army, and then asked Xinting Marquis to change the list. Each family couldn't afford to leave half of their family fortune, and they didn't have a daughter to be the queen. They had no choice but to cry and make preparations. When you encounter a who is not taken seriously, just give him some money and prepare some clothes. But those legitimate sons who cannot escape, or favored concubines, are simply in trouble. Everything you like to eat, wear, use, and even use the toilet you are used to is ready to be moved to the military camp. On August 18, at the gate of the new capital city, a straw hut was set up early. The sweethearts from each family have to hand in their military stickers, verify their identities, and then enlist in the army. The entire city gate was blocked with water, slaves were shouting, horses were neighing, and people started to have headaches before they even got close. Li Laozi and Li Yong brought 200 soldiers and were responsible for picking up the people. The 2 of them knew it was not easy, but when they faced it seriously, they realized how difficult it was. On the left, an old lady wearing gold and silver pulled her fair-haired young grandson into tears. "Grandson, you should take good care of yourself when you go to the military camp. If you don't like the food, send someone home to pick up the food box every day. If you don't have enough money, you must say that my grandmother's coffin will be given to you. It's all your father's incompetence. If there were more children, you wouldn't have to suffer as a legitimate son." A woman on the right pulled her son's hand and also pointed at the sky and cursed the earth. "Your father is a heartless man. He only cares about the kid in the big room. Oh my God, I'm so sorry that my son is studying well and still has to go to the military camp to suffer." Li Yang's mouth twitched when he heard this. His 20-year-old son, who has been studying for at least 10 years, is not even a boy. How can he be called a good student? He quietly touched Li Laosi and said, "Fourth brother, this can't be done. When can we go to the dock as a team?" Li Laosi was even more bored, with veins popping out on his forehead from the patience. "At first I was considerate of these people's reluctance to leave their children and let them say a few more words, but in the end, the situation actually got out of control. If we continue like this, I'm afraid I won't be able to complete the task even if it's dark." He sent the order at that time, and all the soldiers quickly blocked the city gate. "Everyone who has registered should queue up. Each person is only allowed to take one package. Just put a change of clothes in it. Any excess will be thrown away. Those who have not registered must hurry up. If the sun is over your head, you will be sent back before you finish the work. At that time, you will be counted as a deserter and beheaded directly." A nest immediately exploded at the city gate, and the crying became even more intense. A dandy boy of 17 or 18 years old, with makeup on his face and a demonic air, actually held a beautiful maid in his arms and refused to let go. "I want to take Mei Niang with me. I can't sleep without her to warm the bed at night." The maid also burst into tears and hugged the young master tightly, as if a good girl was about to be robbed of her lover. "Oh, don't take the young master away." As for the young master's family, they were pestering Li Laosi with playful smiles, trying to keep banknotes and asking for favors. For a moment, Li Laosi almost felt sick and vomited. The mother at home is always worried that she will spoil her children so much that they will have no future. Looking at it now, compared to these people, it is not worth mentioning at all. No wonder the Marquis insists on recruiting troops. If we don't wake up these giant baby rice bugs, even if half of the country is taken back, they will be completely defeated. "Shut up, everyone." Li Laosi finally showed his strength, grabbed the young master who couldn't live without the bed-warming maid, and threw him into the registration queue. Then he yelled at the soldiers, "Are you all deaf? Tell you what you are doing to clean up the idlers. Act immediately. Anyone who dares to delay the recruitment will be beaten hard by me." The soldiers were also upset. After all, the people pulling them were usually arrogant nobles. They could not hit or scold them, they could only shrink their hands and feet, and were holding their breath. "It's better now, someone is backing us up." So they immediately drew out their long knives from their waists and began to take action. "Hello guys, I have 2 updates today. I am queuing up to put on a secret plaster. Huahua's whole back and neck have turned into slate. I am writing slowly. I will resume the 3rd update tomorrow after I get used to it. Babies, don't fatten. Huahua needs everyone's encouragement." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 615. Chapter 615. A large-scale embarrassing scene. The weeping old and young women were forced out with long knives before they could react. Whether they were scolding, the soldiers always had dark faces and were not willing to be accommodating at all. As for the young masters from various families who were mourning their heirs, they were pushed to one place, registered quickly, and then organized into formations to set off. Originally, Li Laosi found dozens of carriages, thinking of registering a batch and sending a batch to the dock military camp. But he was also annoyed by the situation in front of him. Why don't you use a carriage to send people off? Just walk on foot and give these young men a hard blow. Otherwise, if you want to put this mud on the wall in the future, it may be harder than climbing to the sky. Sure enough, everyone gave up when they heard that they had to walk to the dock, a journey of 50 or 60 miles. Not to mention the family members who were crying loudly. There was even a young man who was lying on the ground and refused to get up. Let me die, I can't leave at all. This is murder. We are not allowed to sit in the carriage and have to walk. This is killing us. I want to file a complaint. Help, Grandma, help, Mother, help. The soldiers stepped forward, kicked and beat them with their scabbards, but they still couldn't make these mangy dogs obey. After Li Laozi and Li Yong discussed in a low voice, Li Yong went to find a lot of ropes. Any young master who refused to obey had his wrists tied behind a horse, and all were forcibly taken away. They walked to the dock as long as they could keep up. Those who can't keep up will be dragged behind the horses. As for whether your skin will be torn apart, whether you live or die, it all depends on you. Everyone originally had the intention of not punishing the public, but as a result, after seeing a few unlucky young men being dragged behind horses and made into human brooms, no one dared to question them anymore. Even with wiping away tears and shaking their legs, the young men lined up honestly and started to set off for the pier. In less than half an hour, everything fell silent at the city gate. The things prepared by each family were thrown in a mess on the floor. The old and young women wanted to follow the children with all their hearts. They were crying, their makeup was stained, and they were more embarrassed than beggars. Some people couldn't help but ask, what's the name of the general who leads this team? Whose family does he come from? This is too cruel. Yeah, I really don't save any face. These are children from different families, how can they be like animals? Others also complained, wanting to scold but afraid of spreading the word, which in turn made the children suffer even more. Someone specially sent a servant to inquire about it. The clerks in the Ministry of War were dismantling thatched huts, and of course they were happy to have such a good opportunity to make money. So they took the hard-earned money and started talking. The general leading the team is called Li Chuzheng, the fourth master of the Li family in Broken Gold Beach, who is also the father of Princess Kangol. Don't think that he is the father of the princess. This general is obtained through connections. That's not true. General Li followed Xintinghao in 2 northern expeditions, killed more than 200 enemies, and made outstanding achievements many times. He earned this generalship by himself. Yes, I heard that he is born with supernatural powers and is very brave. The Marquis relies on him very much, and he is even famous in front of the emperor. I just saw it with my own eyes. The wooden pole that Sun Sanner and I were holding fell down, and General Li raised his hand. That's right, and he was still smiling and didn't dislike it at all. We are useless. What was originally a good inquiring about the details ended up turning into a praise meeting for the petty officials. Every family was even more breathless after receiving the news. Although the Li family has a title and is also a newly wealthy person, they really didn't take it seriously before. After all, none of their families has accumulated 100 years of accumulation, and it is not comparable to the family background of the Li family. As a result, their precious pimple fell into the hands of others, and they had no choice but to be needed and treated. It was really a turn of events. Do they still want to curry favor with the Li family and make friends with the Li family? It doesn't matter whether these people have their own thoughts, whether they are happy or angry. It is only said that Li Laozi took the soldiers and drove these new recruits, and they walked for a full day and a night before they arrived at the dock. It's only over 50 miles, and this speed is comparable to that of a turtle. Li Laozi's face turned black with anger, and Li Yong and the soldiers looked even more exhausted. Even though they were allowed to beat and scold them, they did not relent, but these young men were so tired that they could not be beheaded to death one by one. On the contrary, they have to help guard in the middle of the night to prevent wild beasts, insects, and snakes from eating these wastes lying in the wild as snacks. After hearing the news, the Marquis took Jiang Cheng to the entrance of the camp and waited. When he saw the embarrassment of Li Laozi, Li Yong and others, they all left. Master Ho asked angrily, "Didn't I tell you that you can beat and scold you at will without mercy?" Li Laozi waved his hands weakly and replied, "The main reason is that these lazy idiots would rather be whipped than walk. I can't beat them all to death." Li Yong also stared and complained, "I have learned a lot. This is just walking, it is like killing them. If they go to the battlefield without food or drink, and there are strong enemies outside, they are afraid that they will be the first to scared yourself to death." Jiang Cheng sneered, "They are bullying people, and we are determined that we cannot kill them." When we actually arrived on the battlefield, there were barbarians chasing behind us with sabers. I am afraid they could run faster than anyone else. I only wish my parents didn't have 8 legs. That makes sense, Mr. Ho nodded and ordered, "Let them change their clothes, eat a meal, and sleep. Normal training will begin tomorrow. If anyone refuses to obey the discipline, just follow the marching law and kill them when necessary. I will bear any consequences." "Yes, Lord Marquis," everyone responded in unison. At this time, the Li family's carriage also arrived at the gate of the camp. It turned out that Li Zhensheng came to unload the boat and brought his little niece over to play. Jiyan was very happy just now after seeing the fruit seedlings, medicinal materials, and spices brought back by her brothers. She couldn't help but jump over and hug the arms of the Marquis and her father, showing off, "Father! Dad! My brother found fruit seedlings for me. This time next year, I'll treat you to new fruits." "Okay, just have fun." Mr. Ho rubbed the little girl's hair. Li Laozi sighed, "I'm afraid I'm going to have to deal with these losers for a while. You should be obedient at home." Jiyan looked at the recruits who were almost paralyzed on the ground from a distance and laughed, "They are really bad, they can't even compare to their brothers." "That's right," Li Yongyang flicked his whip, "Jiaxi and Jian are much better than them." After saying a few more words, Li Zhensheng took his niece back to Zindu. The Marquis also went with him in the car when he came to the palace for business. Leaving Li Laozi, Li Yong and Jiang Cheng to continue to have headaches over these new recruits. The season now is truly autumn. In the fields, there are hard-working farmers everywhere harvesting the harvest of the year. Men wielded sickles, women pushed carts to transport the goods, and the elderly and children brought water and food, watched them dry and picked through them. Even babies who have just learned to walk are tied to big trees in the fields, babbling and joining in the fun. The Li family's carriage was moving very fast, and Li Fu had been guarding the small courtyard in the west of the city. It was a rare opportunity for his master to come back, and he was very happy to be useful again. The whip in his hand crackled from time to time. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 616. Chapter 616 Internal and External Troubles. Li Zhensheng talked with Mr. Ho about what he had experienced on the journey from Zindu to Quanzhou. The land south of the Yangtze River is much richer than the north. Besides, except for Zindu, which is far north, it still has 1 crop a year, while other places have 2 crops a year. However, the entire Tianhui people gathered in Jiangnan, and the burden was still extremely heavy. Taxes are collected in various places, and the people have a bad life, and there are more stealing. The Li family's fleet was not large, had enough manpower, and was cautious enough, but they still encountered water bandits 3 times on the road. Even once, water bandits almost injured Jia 11 and Jian Fortunately, Jia Yi was good at skills and was willing to fight tooth and nail to save them. Of course I don't dare to tell my family about this, and I can't let the old lady hear a word of it. Li Zhensheng was afraid that the barbarians in Jiangbei would not get rid of the external troubles and add internal worries, so he said a few words to the Marquis to give a brief warning. The Marquis' face was heavy. He originally went to the palace to talk to the emperor about military training, but he wanted to add a few words. Jiyan doesn't understand these big things and doesn't have the energy to pay attention to them for the time being. Because she is too busy. I said that when I go to Zindu today, I have to go and see the dim sum shop. She has already taken out the glass in the space. The glass cabinets of the pastry shop are being built in full swing, and the second uncle over at Baiwan Garden is also constantly watching the construction of the greenhouse. It is estimated that after all this work, there will still be some glass left, so she plans to build a small greenhouse in the back garden of Yes house to cover the space. She planned to plant the fruit seedlings her brothers brought back this time in front of everyone so that when the time comes, the new fruits would be eaten. As for whether these fruits really grow in the greenhouse, no one would think to find out. Just thinking about sitting on the hotbed in winter, laying out various fruits, eating and talking with the family, Jiyan feels extremely happy. Of course, the fruits here in Tianwu are still very different from those in the previous life. They don't look good and taste bad. But if you have a space nursery in hand, this is not a problem. At most, you can stay up a few nights, guard the nursery, and evolve a few more times. Li Zhensheng and Mr. Ho talked for a long time. He was still feeling a little heavy at first, but when he lowered his head, he saw that the fat girl had fallen asleep. I don't know what I was dreaming about, but I still had a smile on my face, and my mouth clicked twice from time to time. Both of them couldn't help laughing. Master Ho took off his coat and covered the fat girl's belly, while Li Zhensheng offered one of his legs as a pillow. Things are tough, but there is always hope ahead. For example, this fat girl who is carefree and happy is what they are willing to fight for and protect. In Zindu, the originally decent dim sum shop has changed drastically after undergoing renovations over the years. Jiyan walked around and felt very satisfied, so he called Peng Chuan to come forward and inquire, "Shopkeeper Peng, get up early tomorrow morning to preheat the oven. My mother and I will come over and plan to try baking new snacks." "Yes, master, I will make arrangements personally." Peng Chuan accompanied Li Zhensheng and talked for a long time. Now he listened to his master's instructions and quickly agreed. Jiyan was still about to talk, but he saw something strange about a pile of wood shavings in the corner of the room. He walked over and took a look, and asked in surprise, "Shopkeeper Peng, is there anyone in our shop who can carve or paint?" Peng Chuan took a closer look and found that it was the pile of shavings left over from making the cabinets. Someone had placed some flower patterns on them, which were lifelike and beautiful. He hurriedly replied, "Princess, this must have been placed randomly by a boy in the back kitchen. Previously, the slave gave him the job of picking up shavings and asked him to clean it up quickly, but maybe the master called him back to the backyard. If you are busy, just forget about it." Hearing the good news, his eyes lit up and he asked, "This little guy is a chef? Can he also make snacks?" "It's just a simple start, doing some odd jobs," Peng Chuan responded cautiously and said with a smile, "The rules of our shop are that apprenticeships last for 5 years. This guy has only been working for 3 years, but he is very diligent on weekdays." After saying that, he went to the back to call for someone, and soon brought a young man who was 15 or 16 years old. This young man is very thin, and his clothes are half worn, but they have turned white after washing. His hair is meticulously combed, and his hands and face are clean. What is rare is that his eyes are very bright, and he has 2 dimples on his cheeks when he smiles, making him very happy. Su didn't know why he was called out, so he was a little uneasy, but he didn't ask randomly. He just saluted and stood aside respectfully. This not only made Ji Yan feel good, but Li Zhensheng also nodded and asked first, "Little brother, what is your name, where do you live, and where are you from?" The boy quickly replied, "To tell you the story, my name is Chen 11, a native of Xindu. My family is a farmer, and my parents passed away when I was 13. I have been fortunate enough to be an apprentice in the shop for 3 years. Now 16 years old." Li Zhensheng nodded and asked again, "I heard you speak, but you know how to read?" A trace of sadness flashed in Chen 11's eyes, and he said, "When I was a child, I followed the old boy in the village for 3 years. After my parents passed away, it was difficult to survive." Ji Yan didn't want to mention his sad story and interrupted, "Can you draw? If you can make patterns on snacks like those wood shavings, you might be able to do it." Chen 11 was stunned for a moment, then nodded repeatedly, "Yes, boss. I have liked to think about these things since I was a child. I can draw on sand, tree bark, and mud, but I have never learned." "That's enough." Ji Yan was very satisfied and ordered, "Tomorrow, I will come over to think about new snacks. I need to paint or put patterns on the snacks. Then you will follow me and help me. As long as you learn it, or make." Chen Zixi couldn't believe that such a good opportunity suddenly came to him. He was stunned for a long time before he kowtowed to thank the shopkeeper as he was reminded. The shop was renovated in this way just to sell new snacks. If he really performed well and gained the trust of the princess, wouldn't he be a master in the future? This is a step to the sky. After chatting for a while, it was getting late, so Ji Yan followed the uncle in the car and went home. Peng Chuan saw off his master and went back into the pastry shop, where he saw the other waiters and cooks surrounding Chen 11 to congratulate him. He was also happy, but still advised, "Zizi, my boss is interested in you. It's your luck, but don't be proud. You must work hard and try your best." "Don't worry, shopkeeper, I will work hard and not let my boss down." Chen 11's face turned red with excitement as he promised again and again. Peng Chuan looked at the 2 master chefs standing behind the crowd, his face not too good. After thinking about it, he added a few words, "Although my boss wants to add some new snacks to our shop, we will not throw away the original traditional snacks, so don't think too much, everyone, just follow the boss's orders. I think my boss is very kind. As long as we work hard, we will definitely not be in trouble." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 617. Chapter 617 is definitely not a coincidence. "I got it, shopkeeper." "Yes, shopkeeper, don't worry, we will work hard." No matter what they thought in their hearts, everyone responded one after another. In the Li family yard, there is still a curl of green smoke from the stove chimney, which shows that dinner has just been prepared. As soon as Ji Yan got out of the car, she smelled a familiar sweet and sour smell, and she immediately smiled. She ran in quickly, hugged my waist and said coquettishly, "Mom, that's so good. How did you know that I want to eat sweet and sour pork ribs? Wow, I'm starved to death, and my stomach is growling on the way. I'll have 2 big bowls of rice in a while." Tao Hongying was hit by her daughter and took 2 steps back. She was so angry that she wanted to pinch her, but she couldn't. She could only pull her daughter away, tapped her on the forehead, and scolded her with a smile, "Don't be so sentimental, I didn't make it specially for you. It was your sister-in-law and sister-in-law who wanted to eat sweet and sour food, so I stewed a big bowl of it. It's not your share." Not angry at the good news, he ran to the eaves of the corridor again. Mrs. Wen and Wenjuan were sitting opposite each other doing needlework. When they saw the fat girl rushing towards them, they both protected their stomachs. Mrs. Wen quickly begged for mercy, "Eat it all for you, eat it all. Don't pester me, I can't bear it." Wenjuan also smiled, Sister, don't listen to the fourth aunt's joke. She was afraid that you would come back late and wouldn't be able to eat, so she specially reserved a bowl just now. I saw it. Ji-yin smiled and finally stepped forward to touch the stomachs of her aunt and sister-in-law as a way of saying hello to the baby. When Mrs. Lee heard the noise, she came out of the house and took her granddaughter to wash her hands. The good news talked about the miserable state of those young masters, which made everyone laugh and sigh. Mrs. Wen said, "These people usually wander around the streets with their lackeys and bully women from good families. Each one is more capable than the other, but now their true colors have been exposed. Yes, this is how they should be punished." Wen Juan also agreed, "They are all in hiding. If they are sent to Jiangbei, they will have to kneel down with the barbarians to beg for mercy." Mrs. Lee sighed, "They are too pampered at home." Halfway through, she thought of her grandson who was jumping around at home and clamoring to make a living, so she shut up again. What a good news! He quickly changed the topic and shouted, "Mom, my pastry shop has been renovated. Tomorrow, Mom will go to the shop with me and help me teach the masters to bake cakes, okay? I found a handyman today. My little boy, I want him to learn how to decorate with butter." Tao Hongying pulled a cloth to wipe her daughter's hands and said angrily, "It's a real loss to be your mother. I've raised you so well, but now I still have to do work according to your orders." Ji-yin shook her head and waggled her tail. She leaned into my mother's arms like a puppy and acted coquettishly. "Then what should I do? Mom can't put me back in her belly anymore. When I make money at the end of the year, I can buy a gold bracelet for my mother." Before she could finish speaking, Mrs. Wen Juan, and Mrs. Lee all said the next sentence in unison, seriously. At the end, everyone was laughing. Good News scratched the back of his head. Her family is very aware of her hobbies. Li Zhensheng met Li Lauer and Mr. Wen at the door. The three of them exchanged a few words. As soon as they entered the door, they heard laughter from all over the yard, and couldn't help but laugh too. Everyone ate in such joy and laughter, and said nothing all night. Early the next morning, not only Tao Hongying was going to the city, but Mrs. Lee, Mrs. Wen and Wen Wan also entered the city together. Living in the country is comfortable and peaceful, but sometimes it feels boring. Especially these days, everyone in the village is very busy during the autumn harvest. Mrs. Wen and Wen Juan were pregnant, and no one dared to let them bother. Old Mrs. Lee wanted to go to the fields and join in the fun, but unfortunately it was inconvenient as she was the first lady of the imperial family. She does some housework at home on weekdays, and it can be said that she is restless. But if outsiders see them working in the fields, they may criticize the children and grandchildren of the Lee family for being unfilial. Sometimes, this high status has many benefits, but it is also a constraint. Simply, all the old and young in the family went to the city for a walk, so they didn't bother to follow if they couldn't see it. Everyone was curious about what Ji-yin had changed the shop into, so naturally the first stop was here. But when the carriage arrived in front of the door, Peng Chuan came out to greet him, but his expression was a little bad. Everyone saw it and didn't say anything. The two main rooms in the backyard have been tidied up a long time ago, where they can rest when they come over to take care of the accounts in preparation for the good news. At this moment, everyone was seated, snacks and tea were served, and Ji-yin asked, "Shopkeeper Peng, what happened to the shop?" Shopkeeper Peng hurriedly stepped forward and replied, "My boss, it's nothing serious, it's just a little accident. Chen 11 hurt his hand." "Injured your hand?" Ji-yin was cold-faced at that time. She just yesterday appointed Chen 11 to help make snacks today. After one night, Chen 11 injured his hand. If this is a coincidence, even a fool would not believe it. I just don't know if the people who are doing this are targeting Chen 11 or are dissatisfied with her decision. Tao Hongying had obviously thought of this and opened her mouth to support her daughter, but Mrs. Wen and Mrs. Lee held her arms down at the same time. Sure enough, Ji-Yin didn't panic at all and asked shopkeeper Pen to call Chen 11 over. Chen 11's face was pale, his eyes had lost the brightness of yesterday, and his right elbow to his fingers were covered with white cloth strips, which was obviously seriously injured. Wen Juan and MRS Wen couldn't bear to see it and covered their mouth slightly. Orange MRS Li and Tao Hongying looked even worse. They were born in hardship, and they knew that with such an injury, their right hand would be disabled in the future, and their livelihood would definitely be affected. Ji-Yin's eyes were full of anger. She looked at shopkeeper Pen and asked coldly, "What's going on?" Shopkeeper Pen knelt down quickly and replied with a wry smile, "My boss, last night the shop was burning vegetarian oil and half the pot was filled. But when it was still hot, Chen 11 went to get something. He couldn't stand firm on his feet and his right arm was stuck in the oil. It's in the pot. Tianwu's vegetable oil is mostly rapeseed oil. When making snacks, if you add it directly, it will have a particularly astringent taste. Hence, dim sum shops are accustomed to pouring vegetable oil into a pot to heat it in advance, evaporate the flavor, and turn it into mature oil before using it. Who would have thought that an accident would happen to such a small thing that we usually do?" Ji-Yin thought for a while and asked Chen 11, "The oil pan is hot. Shouldn't you stay away? Why did you step forward? Why did you fall when you stepped forward? Do you have any doubts?" Chen 11 suddenly raised his head, and a little vitality burst out of the despair in his eyes. "Master, are you willing to believe me?" Ji-Yin didn't nod or shake his head, but just said, "This is my shop, and you are the man I like. Now that something has happened to you, I must ask clearly. If there is an accident, I will try my best to properly arrange your future errands. After all, you have worked hard for the store and I cannot let you lose your place because of injury. If it wasn't an accident, this matter must be investigated to the end. I can't let people with evil intentions stay in my shop, otherwise wouldn't something like this happen again in the future." Chen 11's eyes were red at that time, and tears flowed down. Dear friends, regarding the various weight issues in the article, Huahua's default here is 1 pound and 10 taels, which is convenient for calculation. It's a story about easy farming in an empty space. It's okay if everyone is happy to see it. Don't be disrespectful. Give it a hug. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 618. Chapter 618, This is not a government office, no evidence is needed. Thank you so much, boss, woo woo, thank you so much, boss. Chen 11 ignored his hand injury and kowtowed hard, then wiped his tears and started talking. The salt shaker was originally placed on the chopping board, but for some reason it ended up on the inside of the pot. The pot was filled with hot oil. My master asked me to bring the salt shaker over. I said the oil was too hot and he would try it again later. Take. He started to scold me, saying that I was respected by my employer and he didn't take him seriously. I couldn't hide, so I held the pot stand with my left hand and reached for the salt shaker with my right hand. At that time, my whole body was lying across the oil pan, and my feet were struggling, but I was suddenly kicked, and my whole body fell into the oil pan, and my right hand was inserted. Speaking of the thrill and pain at that time, Chen 11's eyes turned red again and he choked up. Hearing my screams, the shopkeepers rushed in and pulled me out. The master also said that I was too impatient at work. The shopkeeper asked a doctor to treat my injury and let me rest. I fainted from the pain. When I woke up, my master was beside me. I asked him why he wanted to hurt me. He said that his son could also draw. It was the best time to enter the shop. Suitable. He also said that he was not afraid of me telling the truth to my boss and shopkeeper, because I had no evidence, and he would make me lose my job as a handyman and have to be a beggar on the street. Everyone frowned when they heard this. Chen 11 did not add any exaggeration and only told what he had experienced, but anyone could hear that his words were not adulterated. Especially Peng Chuan was gritting his teeth in anger. Yesterday, he was also a little suspicious and asked Chen 11's master Gao Peng specifically. Gao Peng swore an oath and even wiped his tears because Chen 11 was injured, as if he was reluctant to part with him. Who would have thought? He quickly knelt down and said, "My boss, it was my fault that this happened." Ji Yan glanced at Chen 11's arm and was not happy with Peng Chuan either. The shopkeeper is the backbone of a shop. Peng Chuan actually watched the shop being turned into a mess by a master chef. He was really incompetent. Get up first. We'll talk about your questions later. Call Chen 11's master first, and I'll ask a few questions, Ji Yan ordered. Peng Chuan immediately responded, turned around and went out to see Gao Peng poking his head outside the kitchen, so he called him forward. As soon as Gao Peng entered the door, before he could say more or take a closer look, Ji Yan asked directly, "Master Gao, before this princess even used Chen 11, he burned himself to death. He is really stupid. You are the master chef of the shop. Do you have a good candidate? Please recommend one to me quickly. We will bake snacks soon. This will delay the business and none of you will get paid." Her words were spoken in the very arrogant tone of a little girl, as if she was unhappy when a game was interrupted. Gao Peng was overjoyed and said without any hesitation, "Princess, you don't shy away from relatives when selecting talents, and I really have someone to choose, my son. He has learned the skill of pastry from the slave since he was a child, and he also likes to learn painting. He has a very good talent. If the princess can trust him, the slave will call him over and let the princess do whatever he wants." Ji Yan glanced at Peng Chuan. Peng Chuan coughed dryly and asked in a low voice, "Master Gao, isn't your son studying, waiting to redeem his purchase deed and then take the scientific examination? Why do you want to work in the shop?" Gao Peng hurriedly replied, "This child is useless. He has not learned anything after studying for several years. I was thinking about finding a way out for him, but I didn't expect that the princess is short of manpower. Isn't this a coincidence?" Chen 11, who had always lowered his head, couldn't bear it anymore and shouted in a hoarse voice, "It's not a coincidence. You just deliberately hurt me to make way for your son." Gao Peng was startled and scolded him quickly, "Xiao Zizi, I am also your master after all. I have been taking care of you for several years, so you can't slander anyone. I know you are injured and feel uncomfortable, but who made you careless? As long as you are honest, as a master, I will definitely ask my employer to let you do odd jobs in the backyard, and I will never leave you with no way out." Ji Yan has seen bad people since he was born in Tianwu, but this is the first time he has encountered such a shameless person as Gao Peng. It is really disgusting to intentionally kill people half to death, step on others to get to the top, and still claim to be a benefactor. She didn't want to act anymore, so she asked Peng Chuan, "You were considered slaves of the royal family before. Did you sell your body to the Ministry of Internal Affairs?" Peng Chuan responded quickly, "Yes, boss, our bonds of sale are all in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. We will be royal servants for the rest of our lives. If we make any mistakes, we will be returned to the Ministry of Internal Affairs." Ji Yan nodded and called Ye Shan directly outside, "Uncle Shan, break this Gao Peng's hands so that he doesn't have to make snacks in the future. The snacks made by such a wicked person must not be delicious. Also, shopkeeper Peng, use my post to kidnap the Gao family back to the Ministry of Internal Affairs and deal with them severely." "Yes." Ye Shan responded immediately, stepped forward and grabbed Gao Peng and walked out. Shopkeeper Peng Su didn't expect that his boss would deal with it so simply, so he hesitated for a moment. Gao Peng was originally enjoying the idea that his son had entered the shop and received new dim sum. They and his son were dominating the dim sum shop. He was suddenly pulled out. He was still confused. After thinking about it, he started shouting, "What's going on? Why are you pulling me? Help, princess, shopkeeper Pen, you can't do this. He clawed at the door frame like a koala and struggled at the top of his lungs, causing everyone in the yard to come out and look, their faces changed with fear. Peng Chuan was afraid that everyone would misunderstand his boss, so he hurriedly said to everyone, Gao Peng was jealous that Chen 11 was favored by his boss, so he designed to frame Chen 11 and burnt his arm. He also wanted his son to take over Chen 11's job. The boss knew it all and has dealt with it now. Everyone was surprised and couldn't believe it. After all, Gao Peng is Chen 11's master, and Chen 11 always takes care of him very well. How could Gao Peng be so cruel as to do such a cruel thing? Gao Peng was completely panicked, but he refused to admit it and did not dare to admit it. He tried his best to defend himself. You can't accuse me so unjustly, I didn't do anything at all. Chen 11 was careless on his own. You have no evidence, so you can't unjustly accuse me like this. There was a boy in the courtyard, Su, who was on good terms with Chen 11. He bravely stepped forward, spat at Gao Peng, and cursed, Yesterday I knew that Chen 11 was going to be a master, so you treated him with a nose instead of a nose, not the eyes, we all saw it. You are a black-hearted and rotten person. Brother Chen 11 is only a teenager and he almost got fried in a frying pan. The others may have also remembered the thrill last night and cursed one after another. That's right, how old is Chenzake, he is so cruel. If your son wants to learn his skills, it won't be difficult to become a clerk. What are you doing to Chen 11? Evil, how will Chen 11 survive if his arms are disabled in the future? Your son is a son, so he is not raised by his father and mother. Gao Peng saw them like this. Not only did they have no outside help, but they were also beaten up. He stared angrily, as if he wanted to eat people. Yashin was impatient and kept pestering him, so he kicked him and pulled him out like a dead dog. Gao Peng was still unconvinced, struggling on the ground and shouting, You have no evidence, you have wronged me. Ji Yan walked to the door and said, I am the boss and I am just dealing with a master. What evidence do you need? Do you think this is a government office? Besides, you know in your heart whether you have done something bad or not. If you have anything to say, go to the prison of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and tell it to you. Someone will tell you everything. Gao Peng was quickly dragged down, and Peng Chuan also sent everyone away to go about their business. Chen 11 went forward and kowtowed, weeping bitterly and thanking his employer for making the decision for him. Ji Yan saw him wiping tears with his left hand very neatly, and suddenly asked, Are you left-handed? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 619. Chapter 619. God will reward you with food. Chen 11 was stunned for a moment and replied, Yes, boss, I am left-handed, and my left hand is more flexible than my right. Ji Yan laughed at that time, I'm still worried. This is easy to handle. When I get someone to bring you some medicine, you can quickly heal your right hand. As long as you can provide simple assistance, your left hand can still be used for butter mounting flour. Chen 11 didn't understand what butter embroidery was, and thought that his master was trying to comfort him because he was afraid that he would commit suicide, so he quickly declined, My boss, my right hand is disabled. I'm very grateful to be able to stay in the shop and do some chores. I'm grateful I don't dare to delay my boss's important matters. No, Master Chen, decorating butter is not a physical job, it requires talent. You can only use your left hand, and you are competent enough. Ji Yan waved her hand and said, Well, I got the butter from home, wait a minute, you just try and you will find out. At this time, Tao Hongying also walked out. The oven had been preheated a long time ago. I brought batter at home and quickly baked 5 small cakes. Jian slowly smoothed the cake base with butter, mixed the remaining butter with a little vegetable juice, turned it into a light green color, and put it in a triangular oil paper bag, with the tip cut off a little. In this way, the triangular oil paper bag became a pen, the light green cream became ink, and a few leaves were lightly drawn on the white cream cake. Chen 11 has been standing nearby, staring at all this, his eyes getting brighter and brighter. When the oil paper bag was handed to his hand, his wrists were trembling. After trying to stabilize himself for a long time, he took a deep breath and drew a flower with green cream. There was even a bird parked not far from the flower branch. This simple pattern is far different from the ones Jian saw in his previous life, but it is so novel here. Everyone couldn't help but come over and watch on one side, cheering softly. "Oh, I can actually draw on the pastry. Chen 11's painting is so good. No, we should call him Master Chen from now on." It's a pity that Chen 11 couldn't hear these compliments at all. His mind was filled with the cream, bags, and cakes in front of him. He eagerly begged shopkeeper Peng to cut the opening of the oil paper bag larger so that more cream could be squeezed out. There are 5 cakes in total. When he painted the last one, Chen 11 had already put a bunch of flowers on the cake. It's not a flat painting, it's a stack of creams, making it 3-dimensional like a real flower. Hands of Good News cheered him with joy. She really saw the right person. Chen 11 was born to eat this bowl of rice. Without any examples or guidance, just relying on talent, he was able to figure out such results for the first time. "Master Chen, take good care of your injuries from now on, the cake decoration in the shop will depend on you," Jian gave Chen 11 a big reassurance. Chen 11 was a little stunned. He put down the oil paper bag in his hand, fell to his knees and started kowtowing, crying bitterly. "My boss, you, even if I, Chen 11, die, I will be the ghost of my boss, you, my boss saved my life, I thought I was going to be a beggar on the street, but I also wanted to hang myself and go find my parents." Everyone felt sad when they heard this and stopped laughing. Jian quickly asked Peng Chuan to help Chen 11 up, and said, "You stayed here based on your own ability, not on anyone's mercy. Recuperate first, and then work hard in the future. The shop will not treat you badly." Yes, boss, woo, I will definitely do a good job," Chen 11 insisted and kowtowed 3 more times before getting up. Jian put down the important things on his mind and felt relaxed, so he said to Peng Chuan, "In the past few days, you will take care of Chen 11 and recuperate, and make atonement for your sins. I was wrongly punished before and fined you 1 month's wages. It won't be the same next time." "Yes, thank you boss, I will be more cautious in the future." When Peng Chuan heard that he was fined for his wages, he did not send him away. He was also very happy and saluted repeatedly. Tao Hongying washed her hands, stood at the door and secretly looked into the yard, and said to Mrs. Li and Mrs. Wen, "Our Fu Niu seems to have grown up all of a sudden. She is not afraid of so many people. I am still worried about her young age, will be bullied." These words are full of wistfulness. Parents always hope that their children will grow up, but they are reluctant to let their children grow up. Mrs. Li also nodded and said with emotion, "Fu Niu has been following the second brother to think about Baiwan Garden and the relief department during this period. When the Marquis came back, he started to take her to take care of the affairs of the Marquis mansion. Opening up this dim sum shop is really great. Not much talent." Tao Hongying was a little tired. She walked up to her mother-in-law and whispered, "I have discussed it with the 4th child. Jian, let him do whatever he wants, as long as he doesn't cause trouble. I'm afraid my 3rd sister-in-law has the same idea." Old Mrs. Li didn't speak, she just looked at her granddaughter in the yard. The fat girl is not as coquettish as her family at all. She distributes errands and arranges work in a decent manner. She let out a long sigh and said, "Okay, you have made the decision to be parents, so I won't stop you. You can't let the boys in the family not be as capable as my sister. It's ridiculous to rely on my sister to protect you for the rest of your life." Jian didn't know that her treatment of a wicked person made her grandma and old lady change their minds and untied the ropes tied to her brother's legs. When the sun rose above the head, Ms. Li and her party arrived at Baiwan Garden again. Li Lauer was sending the craftsmen away, and the greenhouse in the east garden had been built. He was very happy when he suddenly saw his family coming over. He quickly asked Zheng Feng to go to Cyclamen to ask for food, and then took everyone to visit the greenhouse. At this time of year, it is very hot at noon, but frost will fall in the morning and evening. So the sunny side of the greenhouse has large wooden windows that can be opened and closed, with large pieces of glass inlaid on the windows. Open for ventilation at noon, and close in the morning and evening to keep warm, creating the most comfortable place for the delicate flowers to live. Ms. Li and others had never seen glass before. Standing in the greenhouse, they were all surprised and asked questions one after another. "This glass is too clean, I'm afraid you won't be able to see it from the other side." Yes, in winter like this, the flowers grown here can be exposed to the sun, and there is no need to be afraid of wind and snow. If this glass is inlaid on the windows of your home, it will be very bright. I think it should be used at the school. If GRN's school building can accommodate a few blocks, I won't be afraid of damaging my eyes while studying. Jian followed behind, listening to everyone's gossip, and suddenly felt that the windows in the small courtyard of the space could not be saved. She quickly hugged her grandma's arm and shouted, "Grandma, I'm hungry, let's eat first, okay? I have to buy good things in the afternoon." Sure enough, Ms. Li smiled and knocked on her forehead, then left with a few words of blame. After everyone had eaten, they went shopping without staying any longer. When women go shopping, what they like and are willing to spend money on is nothing more than fabrics, needlework, and jewelry. When the sun was about to set, the old and young ladies got out of the car with a full load, all with smiles on their faces. It's rare that Li Lao-san brought N Gxi back from Luoan and was waiting in the yard. Jian and Gxi smiled, but they looked guilty. They went back to the academy before, originally thinking of studying slowly and looking for opportunities to convince their families. But the two brothers were out in the wild. Sitting in the school, it was as if there were nails under their buttocks. They were not comfortable at all. After persisting for 2 days, the two of them lost weight and had blisters at the corners of their mouths. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 620. Chapter 620. The Gap Between Dreams and Reality. Li Lao-san, Zhao Yuru, and even Jiaren looked at it and thought it was impossible. So, they discussed it together and sent the two boys back. After dinner, Li Lao-san rubbed his hands and looked embarrassed, not knowing how to talk to his mother about business. In the end, Ms. Li spoke first. "Third child, do you want to ask the two boys to stop school and go out to work?" Li Lao-san was startled and said quickly, "Mom, don't do too much. If you don't agree, we won't let them out." Ms. Li smiled, patted her honest and filial son, and sighed, "I was a little reluctant to let go at first. After all, it's not peaceful outside, and these two boys are like monkeys. If they get into trouble or meet bad people, the family has no regrets. But they are kids, not chickens and ducks raised at home, so I'm afraid they can't be trapped. Besides, everyone lives once, and if they can't do whatever they want, wouldn't they be reincarnated in vain? Two boys, if they want to leave, let them go." Before Li Lao-san could respond, Jian and Gxi were already squealing and jumping up. "Grandma, did you really agree? We are free." "Oh. I want to go to the sea." I want to go to the other side of the sea to see the fairy island. The two of them hugged each other, as happy as the new year. When the family heard the commotion, they all gathered together. Tao Hongying saw that her mother-in-law's eyes were still red, but the boys looked like this, so she was so angry that one of them slapped them. After being beaten, the two boys finally noticed that their eyebrows were different. They stayed close to the grandma and hugged her arms on one side and the other on the right. "Grandma, I can't bear to leave you." "Me too." The two of them wanted to imitate their younger sister's act of coquettishness, but unfortunately they were not born with this skill. So they only said these two dry sentences. Old Mrs. Lee was full of sourness, and now her grandson also laughed angrily. "You two are like sticks, you don't know if you will be burned as firewood when you go out like this." Old Mrs. Lee pulled their wrists and warned, "Don't think that just because I promised you not to study, you think everything will be fine. After all, you are still too young, so I will stay at home for a while until my family prepares things for you, and then it will not be too late to leave." "Why, Grandma," Jian immediately protested, "we still want to follow the next boat back to Quanzhou." "Yes, Grandma, there will be fleets going to foreign countries during the Chinese New Year. We want to buy a boat and go to sea." Jiaxi was also anxious. Before the old lady could respond, Jian, who was sitting aside and chewing some fruit, spoke first. "Brother, are you planning to buy a boat and go to sea? Do you know how much money it costs to buy a boat? How many boatmen and guards does a boat need? I heard that there are pirates on the sea. You can't even kill a chicken if you encounter a pirate, you may not even be able to withstand a sword. Also, Uncle said, our Tianwu silk and tea are very popular in foreign countries. A jar of tea can be exchanged for a gem. Do you want to take some with you? Do you have money to buy goods? The waves on the sea are very strong, and the boat capsizes accidentally. Do you know how to watch the sky? You can't eat vegetables for several months at sea, and people will get sick and die. Do you know how to avoid it? How are you going to do business with the locals when you arrive in a foreign country and don't understand the language? Be careful that people think you are intruders and kill you directly." She had a face full of curiosity and asked a lot of questions. But Jian and Jiaxi's expressions became worse and worse. They wanted to refute several times, but they lacked the confidence. They didn't know anything and had no capital. It was really too fanciful to say that they wanted to buy a boat and go to sea. But if they were asked to give up just like that, they would not be willing to do so. Jian relied on his identity as a brother and asked in a low voice, "Fu Niuer, can't you help my brother buy a boat and buy goods? Don't worry, when we make money, we will give it to you." "We don't want it." Mrs. Lee and her granddaughter have a tacit understanding. Now she quickly joined in and hit her grandson, "What you said is really ridiculous. You don't even know how much money a boat costs. How can you ask your sister to provide money? Your sister's money does not come from strong winds. She just supplements your pocket money on weekdays. Do you want to prepare capital for you to travel in the world? Are you just pretending to be brothers? Don't you blush? Even if your sister can afford the money, you don't know anything. If you take the ship and goods to sea, you are going to die. You talk about making money, but you may lose everything." Jian and Jiaxi looked at each other, wilting like eggplants beaten by frost. They just think that they can conquer the stars and the sea just by walking away. Who would have thought that there are so many preparations before departure? Jian was afraid that his brother's young ambitions would be extinguished, so he quickly said, "Brother, it is not impossible to go to sea, but you must have a plan. For example, you must learn martial arts to protect yourself, learn foreign languages, and learn to sail and observe the sky. As long as I have learned these things, going to sea will not mean risking death. I can give my brothers money to buy the best boats and goods." Mrs. Lee hugged her granddaughter and said with a smile, "As long as they can do this, no matter how hard it is for you to provide money, the family will be able to support them. I'm afraid that your two brothers are both cowards who can only talk big words." After hearing this, I've changed my mind about this. Jian and Jiaxi were indeed fooled by the provocation, and they shouted in unison, "No, we won't change, we just want to go to sea, and we are not afraid of trouble." "Well," Mrs. Li quickly agreed, "my family has made a 3-year agreement with you. Within 3 years, as long as you learn these skills, my family will support you in buying a boat and go to sea, and will never stop you." 3 years, 3 years, Jia and Jia 11 agreed in unison, and they all stepped forward to give grandma a high five. Jian winked with her grandma, then took her 2 brothers and walked to the backyard. "Brother, come to my room. I will show you some good things. You will definitely need them when you go to sea in the future." Seeing the 3 children entering the corner gate, Tao Hongying breathed a sigh of relief, and then asked her mother-in-law in a low voice, "Mom, I thought these 2 children were going to make more trips to Quanzhou, but I never thought they were going to sea. Can they make it?" Li Lao-san also had some regrets. "Yes, mother, I thought they would at most follow eldest brother and Ji Yi a few times." Old Mrs. Li waved her hands, took a deep breath, and said, "Since we want to let the children roam freely, don't interfere with where they go. Fortunately, Fu Niu is smart and helps me hold them down for 3 more years. In the past 3 years, they have learned more skills in the end. It would be best to change their minds if they insist on going to sea, at least they will have the ability to protect themselves." Li Lao was listening on the side, thinking of Jiaran and brother Li from the academy, and suddenly became worried. These 2 children are also going to Quanzhou for a study tour soon. Will they also? In the backyard, Jian and her 2 brothers gathered around the Kong table to eat fruit. Grapes, peaches, etc. that were difficult to take out in front of outsiders were all stuffed into Jiaxi Jian's stomach happily. They have been eating secretly with their sister since they were young. It is a basic rule engraved in their minds regardless of the source. Even though they were a little frustrated at the moment, it didn't stop them from moving their mouths. Jian ate a peach, then ran to the kangwei to rummage through the cabinet, and then took out something, which made Jia and Jiaxi forget to swallow the fruit in his mouth. Hence the third update. End of this chapter.